Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
Mark, how's it going? Great to see you.
Likewise, yeah. Hey, I'm out on the West Coast up in the Seattle Bellevue area, and we're getting a little bit of that Christmassy weather. Had a little bit of frost and it mixed with snow on the ground the other day. How are things where you're at?
Yeah, I'm just outside Charleston in South Carolina. It's a little bit wet and breezy today. Temperatures are nice. Not really feeling Christmassy.
Do you ever get snow down there?
Not really. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I haven't seen snow since I've been here. And I've been here a couple of years. But
Awesome.
I'm getting on the plane to Ireland on Friday. However,
It gets colder over there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's cold and it's dark and it's full of light. So it's
Yeah.
proper
Cold and dark. Sounds like Seattle. That's Hey, I'm looking forward to talking to you, about some of the work that you do and some of the observations that you've had in terms of helping small and medium-sized LSPs scale, both operationally and on the sales side. But before we jump into that, maybe could you just give a little bit of background in terms of, how you got into Loc and just talk about a couple of the different positions that you've held?
Yeah, that's a long history here, Mark.
We can condense it down.
So back in the day, I kind of stumbled into this industry. I was in Dublin coming out of college and wanting to go into the IT industry, computers. And at that time, you really had a choice. You go to Lotus or you go to Microsoft. One was on one side of the city. Microsoft was on the south side of the city. So I lived on the north side of the city. So I went to Lotus, and they had just started Lotus Development. They started this localization thing that I'd never heard of. And the rest is history. I've been really privileged to spend, my entire career in the industry. Just moving to LSP side, I guess, in kind of the late 90s, as a lot of LSPs were popping up and the big tech companies decided to outsource. Even that's back in the day. A lot of our listeners probably wouldn't even remember that. And then LSPs like STL and people like that were growing really big, really fast, and Berlitz and all of that back in the day. So Dublin was crazy in the late 90s for localization and all of that kind of stuff. So I found my niche on the LSP side. I love helping people and waking up every morning, different clients, different needs. So kind of ran operations, ran project management at that side of it. I came with an engineering background. Found I fell into sales, was asked to take over sales, and ended up just loving the relationship on the sales side, and kind of been there since, so I've built a few companies of my own and kind of sold them and moved on, lived in California and for 12 years, on the LSP side. And then more recently in my career, headed up North America customer experience sales for Accolade, the one big giant in the industry that I actually spent some of my time in my career. But found, for me, I'm entrepreneurial at heart. And so I love the let's build this, let's take a look at this problem, let's deal with that, so kind of set up consulting about a year and a bit ago. Again, everything focused on growth, helping LSPs, mainly small and mid-sized LSPs, growing their business, fixing their sales organization, getting themselves geared up for growth. And again, for me, it's about relationships. Everything is about relationships. This industry is great and it's full of wonderful people, and it's all about relationships, so for me, the whole growth and helping people to be successful is really what gets me out of bed in the morning. So that's kind of it condensed, hopefully, into a...
No, that's awesome. And you've been around, and again, you've worked for smaller LSPs, but you've also worked for some of the largest. You mentioned your role at Accolade, for example.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, the challenges for small or medium-sized LSPs are quite a bit different, in my experience, from those large LSPs where, large LSPs, they're doing, 70, 80, 100 million, $200 million a year in revenues. And one of their challenges might be, we're trying to acquire companies, and then we're trying to kind of bolt them on and make them, work in alignment with the parent company. And so it's more like, acquisitions and then the integrations of those. But with smaller, medium-sized ones, a lot of times it's, what I've seen is, a family husband and wife started a business, it grew, and at some point they want to, maybe 15 years in, they want to take it to the next level, or they've transitioned it to somebody in their family to take over, and that person wants to, take the business to the next level, but they have all these legacy systems, these legacy processes, and it sometimes it can be very hard for them to challenge, to kind of to get to that next level. If we talk about from the sales side, you can look at, who you're selling to, how you're selling to them, and the systems. Maybe you can give some examples of, what some smaller LSPs can do to get to the next level.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, you're 100% right. The issues are different, and in some respects, they do have similar issues, So I also worked at an LSP where we did 3 acquisitions and integrations on a smaller side, so it's obviously easier to integrate something that size than, you acquire a $50 million company and then you have to try and figure out how you put that together with your own organization. But I think, I think a lot of it is, we've been doing this for 15 years. It's gone quite well. I started out doing something else and I didn't really think our company was going to grow to this. And now it's great. And I really don't know what to do. And we've always done it this way. So part of it is a mindset thing, right? So, we've always done it this way. We've always been very successful and we'll continue to do that. And a lot of the time too, you're just relying on 1 or 2 big clients. And I think that's always a huge danger too. So it's kind of like open the mindset up, first of all, to look at, okay, you've gotten to this point, but if, it's not necessarily going to be the thing that's going to take you to the next level. Now, I'm not saying just throw everybody under the bus and throw everything out and start again. I'm saying you can repurpose a lot of the good stuff, but have a really critical look at, okay, what's not going to carry us forward? What do we need to change? Do we need new technology? Are we going to have to invest? Look at who, is our leadership team aligned? Are they the right people in the right roles? Am I the right leader? Do I need to bring in outside help here to really help me with the vision and really help us define the process? So I think it's a lot of redefining processes that are going to take you to the next level, really, and even just figuring out, well, what clients do we want to go after? Do we want to play to our strengths? Do we want to go after everything? Let's try and be all things to everyone. So I think getting a very clear vision of, great, we want to double in the next 5 years, but what does that really mean? And are you prepared to really take the medicine in order to help get you there? Because there's usually some hard decisions around people, around process, around technology, around probably everything you've been doing, for the last 10 or 15 years. Are you prepared to make those changes? Are you prepared to put your money up there to invest in order to make those changes, to get you prepared to spring forward? And then, of course, you need a plan. You need to execute on the plan. So I think that's a lot of what needs to happen.
Without naming any names, but can you give some examples of a company that maybe they were trying to do everything, more of a generalist, or maybe they were focused maybe on, government contracts, and in order to get to the next level, they had to kind of go after some different targets. And then, but when you go after different targets, you need to prepare the right approach, the materials, the collateral, the whole marketing plan, etc.
Yeah.
Can you give an example or two of companies that you've worked with or that you've seen that have been able to kind of successfully reposition themselves?
Yeah, I without obviously naming names, I think one great example I have is a good LSP, good team, great attitude, really want to do well, but trying to be all things to everyone, so had thousands of clients, and when I came in and had a look and it was like, guys, what are we doing here with client X? We treat them, we give them our best people, we treat them great and all of that. Okay, what are we doing with client Y? Oh, well, we do the same with them. And it's like, well, one gives you $100,000 a year and one gives you $1,000 a year. Like, why would you do that? So that's a big, I think that's a bit, well, they might grow. It's like, well, they've been with you for 7 years and they haven't got over $1,000 a year. We need to redefine the long tail and park them over there and automate them and whatever. And then we need to take your top tier clients and really focus on them and understand, why are they with you? What are you doing that's good with them? Where are the opportunities to expand on them? Where can we find more of those clients and really, really turn? And that's what we did, So we really had to redefine the whole infrastructure in terms of even the team and who focused on what. And as I said, automation of the long tail of the smaller clients and even turning some of those clients away and just kind of introducing them to some of the vendors to say, hey, look, you'd be better served over by our French partner over there. They'll take care of you, and your revenue and all of that. So kind of a big clean out like that.
We did something like that when I was running Asia for CLS Communication. I came aboard and it was all about growth. And so we were taking anything, man, any business we could, but, in about a year and a half in, we started looking and saying like, hey, we've got these customers and it's the volume's there, but also the margins are there. And these other ones that we just took, we need to go back and talk to them about their pricing. And some of them opted out and they said, and we were okay. Well, because we need to make room for these larger, more lucrative type of relationships.
Yeah.
And the pricing discussion was a real easy way for us to decide. We're like, here's what's going to cost. And if they opt out, we were like, okay, but so I don't know if you've ever worked with your customers or in companies and talked about pricing strategy, because people I feel, especially smaller LSPs, they do have that loyalty with their customers.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they feel very awkward or uncomfortable having a pricing discussion. I mean, what have you seen?
Yeah, totally agree. I've experienced it at several organizations where they're scared to death to have that conversation with the clients, and I get it, right? As a CEO or a company owner, and the rest of the organization starts to behave that way. You want to do absolutely everything to maintain that client, take care of that client. Don't rattle with the prices. We'll take the hit on this side, and in one instance, I really had to sit them down and say, look, what? Do you understand the value we're actually bringing to this client? Because if we don't understand that, we're never going to convince the client and we're never going to be able to sell all, everything. And we weren't, to be honest with you, we weren't even trying to add additional cross-sell services, upsell services, but it was like basic line items that should have been in there. It's like, look, your team is doing this already. You're paying for this. Our project managers are doing this work. Our engineers are doing this work. We need to charge the client for this. This is our time. And if we don't understand the value and the client doesn't understand the value, then we need to explain it to them. And then if they're not willing to listen to us, then we have a different conversation. This is a client that either values us or they don't. And then you need to make a decision. Do you want that revenue or do you want that revenue or do you want no revenue from them? So
totally agree.
But yeah,
I've seen where it's like, well, a project will come in and it's a rush job. And I'd say, so where are the rush charges? Or there's DTP involved and, where's the DTP charges? Cause we're doing that. And if we don't do it, somebody's going to have to do it for them. And well, we haven't charged them in the past. I would look at it and say, well, I'm not saying we have to charge them, but we have to make them aware of what the charges are. So you put the charges in the invoice. And then when they come back and question it, if they do, because they might not, but if they come back and question it, say, oh, well, the charges are there and, we have this good relationship. So we'll see what we can do. And maybe we can back those out or something like that. Yeah. But you have to make them aware, because if they're not aware of the value that you're delivering, it's very easy for them to just kind of continue as is.
Totally agree. And they're just looking at it as commodity then. It's usually just, it's just words, and it's not, it's desktop publishing, it's min charges, it's rush fees, it's project management fees, it's like this stuff all happens. This is all part of the process. So in some cases, I convinced the organization and the people and the team, we went and had conversations and the client would push back and we go, we revisit the pricing conversation at the end of the year, but you're now aware of all this other stuff. And very often clients will go, no, I get it. Okay. We can add that on, but, and take it on. Sometimes they didn't even question it, so, and it's not like, as I kept saying back in the organizations where I've had this example or these examples, it's like, guys, this isn't going to cost us any more, right? We're already doing the work. Our PMs, our engineers, our DTP team, they're already all doing the work. If anything, we get these charges in, the client understands the value, and we're improving our margins. That's the bottom line on this. We're improving our revenues and we're improving our margins. Because right now, we're paying for this, not the client.
Totally
So I
agree.
think, but again, yeah, it is. It's a historical thing of too scared to kind of go and have the conversation. But you need to be confident, and you need to believe in your own value, that you're adding value here. Because if it's just words, then you're just shoveling words from one direction to another direction.
Yep. What do you, when you go in and you work with a company, and you're working with their sales team, do you use any type of sales process? Do you have a favorite, or do you have your own, or do you do sales training, or what does that look like?
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't offer sales training. It's not something. It's not something that is in my wheelhouse. But I don't know. Do you know John Flannery Sales System? I was through that.
I've heard of it. I'm not really familiar with it. Yeah.
Big plug for John here. He's an amazing guy out of San Diego. Has done a lot of sales training in our industry. He really only works with bigger organizations, but I learned a lot under the Flannery system at Accolade, to be honest with you. It gave me a lot of structure. I was doing a lot of the stuff naturally, and I didn't really even probably think about it, but it gave me a lot of structure. And so I've used some of the tools that John kind of enabled me and empowered me with that I would apply, I would bring to the table. I would, when I go into an organization, there's tools there that, I can repurpose, I can use, and just from experience of using them now, so that would certainly be the one I would recommend for, but getting some sort of formal structure on it, I would definitely recommend to every sales organization, every sales, every CEO, every owner of an LSP out there, get some structure on it. You can't just hope for the best or set some numbers and send your team off and hope that they'll come back, at the end of the year with the numbers. You have to put structure on it. You have to give them guidance and obviously build in the KPIs and encourage them and help them along the way,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the other thing about having a shared structure or process is that you have a common language, so that you can talk about where you are in the sales process, and you can talk about, the likelihood of closing, when you're going to close, what the challenges are, who the blockers, who are the other stakeholders. And if we have a common process, then we can have that common language, and it's just easier for us as an organization to really understand what's going on with different customers and different prospects. So how about on the tools side? These days, obviously most companies need or have a CRM. What are your thoughts in terms of right sizing CRMs for a small, medium sized LSP? Do they need to go out? Does everybody need Salesforce? Are there other options?
Well,
and then we'll talk about like sales enablement tools and stuff like that. But yeah, what have you seen for CRMs?
Yeah, I've worked with 3 or 4 CRMs over the time. Obviously, Salesforce is everything you could possibly want and a lot more. I think probably too much, unless you've hundreds of salespeople. It's probably too much for for smaller, mid-sized LSPs. More recently, I've worked with HubSpot, which I love. I thought it was superb in terms of just being a good fit for kind of mid-sized organization. Great, great reporting tools. They all have good reporting tools, but HubSpot worked really well, and good integration and good integration with stuff like Zoom Info and LinkedIn Navigator. And again, it just kind of worked well. I love the reporting, the dashboards, because again, I think organizations have changed, in terms of the data. Everything needs to be data driven or be heavily data driven. I think if I'm a CEO of an organization, I definitely want that data within the sales organization, and want constant updates and want constant views, on that. So I think that's worked. I've worked with a few of the smaller ones as well, Sugar CRM, and there's 1 or 2 others. Again, worked well, but I think you got to think about, look, how big is my organization? What do I have? Do I have 2, 3, 4 salespeople? Do I have hundreds of clients? Do I have 20, 30 clients? How much data do I want? How often do I want it? How often do we want it up to date? And it's got to be kept simple. Keep it simple. You don't want this to become an admin burden on your sales team. It has to be easy. They have to be motivated to keep the data, because you're only as good as the data that's in there. So the data needs to be kept up to date, but it needs to be easy and quick and integrated in your process, so that's the best way it's going to work for you. And then you'll get, as I said, the tools are powerful to pull the data out then and display it at the front end so you can see your dashboards, whatever data you want to see and how you want to manipulate that. So,
yeah, I mean, I've always said that I want my salespeople to be out selling, and I don't want them stuck behind a computer doing data entry into a CRM. Now, we do need some basic data, and we need to track activity. Some of the tools these days, like Kong, or I'm using one called Read AI, where it will it listens in or watches the sales call, and it will create a transcript. It will create a summary. It will create a list of follow-ups that you have to, and then it will give you advice like, hey, Mark, you were talking 80% of the time. Shut up and let the other person talk, or you were talking too quickly, which, if I have enough coffee is always going to be a problem. So it's kind of interesting. But from a management point of view, one, you're getting all of that information. You're taking it off the plate of the salesperson, and the tool's actually doing that. Now, the salesperson might add some stuff to it, but then I, as a manager, I have access to all those reports from any of my people in the field selling, right? So it's pretty cool. And then you can get roll-ups information and saying, hey, how many calls, how many potential closes, what's percentages, and we're getting to that next level where we're taking the burden off. I remembered I was working for one of the world's largest LSPs as they were rolling out Salesforce, and it was a nightmare because there were so many different fields, and we were asked to input so much just information that was not going to be helpful. Like why do you need this? Oh, well, we need it. Well, you need line by line, projections for different types of services by week for each customer. It's just like, no, and Salesforce, if you're not a native, you haven't been using it for a long time. It also depends on the deployment. You can set it up in a relatively simple manner, but if you set it up to be complex, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because again, you want your salespeople out selling and not becoming a data expert, data entry expert.
And I think there's a fine line too, Mark, and maybe I'm more casual about it. And I really do think it depends on the leadership team or the CEO or whoever's in charge of the organization. But I think there has to be a level of trust as well. If you've built your sales organization, your sales team, and you've structured it correctly, I think there has to be a level of trust in that. Look, at the guys and the girls are out there selling. They're doing, sure, I think there's KPIs and there's how many, how many quotes have gone through this month, and what's the, probability chances of winning X percentage of that business, and where are we at? But I think you can structure it and set it up using like Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever to pull that data out for you, I think. And as you said, I agree with you, get them out there selling, get them out there having the conversations. It's a very human thing at the end of the day, regardless of all the automations and the tools and everything that's in there. But for me, I think there has to be a level of trust that they're getting out of bed every morning and they're motivated to do the best and all of that, and we'll get the data. And if they're not, the data will pop it up there and go, dude, you haven't had a quote for a month. What's going on here?
Well, that's a problem. Then we have to have a conversation. Yeah.
Right.
So let me ask you, clearly you as you said, you didn't start on the operational side, but you really enjoy sales or selling. What, there's so many different aspects of selling. You could do cold calling, you can do emails, you can do LinkedIn, you can do events, you can ask for referrals. There's just basically as many different types of selling as you can kind of imagine. What are your favorite ways in today's environment to reach new customers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And me personally, it's all about relationships, honestly, at the end of the day. And it's all about, being authentic, having a voice out there, giving value, giving something back and all of that. So, the social selling thing, for me, at my stage of my career, that's easy for me to say, right? Because, been there, done that and all of that, and I think there's a lot of, again, bigger organizations that maybe has 50 salespeople are not going to have time. They're going to have to do all of everything that you mentioned, So it really depends on the size of your organization, where you want to grow it and all of that. But for me, I do think a lot of it is about, you still have to put the hard work in. You need to figure out who you're going after, who you'd like as a client, doing the outreach. But I think there is the social way of doing it, through LinkedIn, through understanding your value and seeing if there's a fit there, and then it's not necessarily 50 cold calls a day and I got one person to pick up the phone. I don't think people even pick up the phone anymore. I'm not sure, but or whatever it is.
Not what I call.
So I think it's more of that selling, having the brand, having helping build brand awareness, being able to come and have a valuable conversation with somebody and finding out exactly who they are, understanding their needs and all of that kind of stuff. And I know that's very, as I said, at my stage of my career and all of that, that's probably easy for me to say. If there's young, beginners in the industry who are new salespeople, it's like, that's not going to work for you, Paul. I'm brand new in the door and I need to get numbers on the board and all of that. So I think you have to do a combination of everything. I think you do have, and you have to do the hard work, and you have to get out of bed every morning, and you have to be prepared to roll up your sleeves, spend the time in Navigator, spend the time in Zoom Info, figuring out who the right people are, and then doing the outreach, whatever that takes, whether it's through LinkedIn or through introductions or through somebody knows somebody who can introduce me or whatever, and just doing the hard graft. I think that's it. There's no getting away from the hard graft. So at the end of the day,
what are your thoughts in terms of for getting new business, local industry events versus non-local industry events? So, hey, maybe we want to target, pharmaceutical industries. So we want to go to pharma events, especially if they have something related to marketing or advertising or, some kind of content creation, versus going to a local industry event. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I love local industry events, as you know. I don't think a lot of clients go necessarily to buy at local industry events. I think a lot of the time they go to meet their existing supplier, or to look at some of the new technology, or maybe to kind of hear what's going on, catch themselves up on what's going on in the industry. I do remember back in the day, you probably remember yourself, Mark, where you'd have all the LSPs with their name badges on and be running one end of the room to the other because there'd be a client there and there'd be a client there. I don't think that's way back. That's way back when young people in the industry probably don't remember that. But I don't think it really works that way anymore, to be honest with you. I think a lot of the client side people that go, they're already very active in terms of it in the industry, from not just doing their jobs, but they're active out there in the industry through other organizations and all of that. So they have a really good idea of who I want to work with, or if I'm even looking for somebody, or if I need a little, a piece of new technology or whatever it is. So that said, you have to go, you have to be visible, you have to be present and all of that. I've done it more recently. I've done non-industry events, and that's been super interesting. Not just even from just listening to the content and seeing what's going on and seeing who's there and all of that. And remarkably see the overlap in some of the, localization is kind of a step on from content creation, for example, and how they're thinking and worrying about the same things we are in our industry. And, AI is are we all going to be unemployed next year? Nobody needs content writing anymore, stuff like that, I think non-industry events can be really, really good if that's your niche, and that's I've gone to like some government kind of run events, and it's more translation focused, and they've been very successful, So I think if you have a strength in a certain industry and there's a non-localization event on the go that has a lot of clients in that industry, I think you should certainly consider it and look at it. Absolutely. I think there's often clients there looking for, hey, I need a translation partner or a localization partner, and you'll get good clients out of it.
Totally agree with you. What areas of localization? Well, I mean, back up. You mentioned AI. What applications of AI in the local industry are you most excited about? I mean, a lot of times people kind of they intermix AI with machine translation, and that's like I guess the basic one, or using LLMs for neural machine translation, which is not really what I'm getting at. I think I'm looking at like kind of new applications of AI and how is it going to change localization?
I mean, I honestly, at this point, I really don't know what's going to come through the door next.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen anything that's really said, boom, we're here right now. I think everybody, the best, I mean, a lot of the large ones are rolling out their own AI platforms right now and all of that. So, and I think it'll take a little while to see how successful all of that is. I mean, I've been biased, I guess, I suppose, in some regards, in that it's the interconnectivity is where I'm seeing, I think the whole industry is shifting and moving, because I think AI has to be a given. I think everybody's going, I have to implement it in some shape or form. But how do I automate the whole thing? So, and I think that's why there's so many people worried about, hey, we're a translation firm first and foremost, our words going away. And that's why there's so many conversations about, hey, there's still need for the human translator, and the job titles will be different and words will be maybe less. And we saw Straker actually announce, I don't know if you saw the Straker announcement, where they're changing the pricing and it's not just per word anymore and so on, which is super interesting to kind of, is this where the industry is going? So I think that's a shift. But in terms of, I haven't seen anything, and I'm not really necessarily out there looking for it day in, day out, but I haven't seen anything that I'm jumping up and down saying, hey, this is it. This is the next great thing. I mean, what have you seen? What are you looking at?
Well, there's, things like the, dubbing, transcripts. I mean, you have a video and AI can create an amazing transcript, high quality transcript immediately. Yeah. And then the dubbing with AI generated voice actors or, voice clones. Those are pretty cool. I think on the workflow side, the ability. So for example, at memoQ, we have AGT, which allows it's similar to having your reference files available. If you're a project manager and you want to look, or a translator, you want to look at the reference files, but instead of just looking at the reference files, the AGT is going through the reference files and recommending translations. So it's making the CAT tool and the TMS much more powerful. And then on the project management side, giving so a big thing for project managers is vendor selection or linguist selection. And if you can do that in a quicker, more intelligent way, and when I say more intelligent, I'm just saying immediately knowing who's available because they have capacity, have dynamic pricing, where because they're available, they're willing to, adjust their pricing, or look at a project and say, you know what, this project, is not due for 2 months. So we can allocate that to a lower cost vendor because it's not a rush, but this one is, and so just being able to work through all that on the fly at an enterprise level is pretty darn cool. And it's just creating much more efficiencies. So that's what I've been seeing. How much of it's hype and how much of it's real? Well, I'm not a project manager, so I have to believe the hype. But I can tell you, it's anything you can do to make those people's lives easier, though, is greatly appreciated. And then on the sales side, again, I go back to the sales enablement tools that are just super powerful. My concern is on the sales side is that initial outreach, because everybody's inundated with email messages, text messages, LinkedIn connection requests. Yeah. And it's kind of frustrating because so I'm very partial to in-person networking or going to events, small events, big events, meeting people face to face. And if you can have an authentic conversation with somebody for 5 or 10 minutes, and then ask them, hey, would it be okay if I did a follow-up? That's going to be much easier than just sending a bunch of emails. But those tools, though, back to the point of AI, the way they can help you summarize meetings and prompt follow-ups, and then help you with prospecting are super powerful, man.
Yeah, no, I've seen the meeting summaries where you get it on, automatically at the end, and all of that stuff is definitely going to improve our daily lives. You did mention the voiceover, phenomenal phenomenal, the quality of the AI voices now. I mean, I've heard some recently, and I literally wouldn't have picked it out. And maybe I don't have a trained ear necessarily, but it sounded pretty good, like a natural flowing Spanish person speaking. It was amazing. I couldn't tell the difference, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So
pretty cool. I'm sure you heard the OpenAI story, how they basically stole Scarlett Johansson's voice and started using that as their their voice representative, and then she immediately, because they reached out to her previously and say, hey, can we use your voice? Can we do a licensing deal? And she said no. And then like the day before they did the release, the OpenAI CEO tried to contact her and said, hey, come on, we got to do a deal. And she said no. And then they released it. And, lawyers were sending letters all over the place. And, but the point is if it didn't sound authentic, nobody'd be bothered. Right. But it's exactly, high fidelity. What excites you, like, in terms of, if you were coaching or working with a small LSP and they wanted to go maybe into other verticals, are there any particular verticals or industries or applications that really excite you?
I always, again, it comes back to the human piece. And I don't mean words. I mean, I think the future is, look, we're sitting here looking at one another, chatting away and all of that. This has been around for a few years, and everything is about the consumption of content, and that's video, that's everything we can see, we can hear, we can touch, and all of that. So again, I think that's a huge field where, I don't know if AI is going to absolutely ruin all of that as per Scarlett, but I mean, I think there's definitely opportunity there. Again, there's a lot of clients haven't even woken up to that in terms of, haven't put money forward to invest in that, to put their companies out there. So I think there's a lot of companies moving even in that direction, outside of their website, and we have a few videos here. I think there's going to be more and more investment on that side of the house, with companies that never probably even dreamed of it. And it's not tech companies, it's going to be all sorts of companies from all sorts of industries know they have to represent their brand in a certain way. And that's going to be through that, visual media, so I think that's somewhere I naturally gravitate, because that's cool and interesting, but I think if I my advice to any LSP out there, if they have a strong, if they have a strong story in a certain industry, then try and focus on that, play to your strengths, and go look for more in there, but with the additional services, you got to keep bolting on, you got to keep offering more. You can't, it's not just about we've always had this, you got to cross sell, upsell, even if you're not chasing new business, you got to keep moving, forward.
Makes sense. So what are your plans for 2025? Do you have any events that you're going to go to, or any travel? You mentioned you're going to Ireland for the holidays.
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, obviously, as a consultant, I've a number of balls in the air, as they say. So I did some work with some LSPs. I'm very proud to be working with Blackbird and did some stuff with Nimsy as well. I've been closely aligned with Gala, so I'm looking at Gala, maybe presenting, hoping maybe to get to Gala it's in Montreal next year. So kind of looking at that, and then Lock World would be back in my hometown, my other hometown of Monterey. So
are they going to do it back in Monterey again? Because
I believe so. I'd heard that. Yeah, I don't know if that's confirmed, but that's kind of what I've heard. So.
Great.
And then I potentially looking at helping the ALCA out too. I've done a couple of things for those guys, and again, they're relatively new. They're only a year old, and I love helping new organizations up off the ground. So kind of toying with the idea. Maybe I'll be in South Africa sometime later in the year too. So
awesome.
Bit of travel and hopefully helping people grow their revenues and grow their organizations and all of that good stuff,
Yeah. And if somebody wants to reach out to you and have a couple questions for you or just want to touch base, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can catch me on LinkedIn, obviously. I'm just Paul Barlow, obviously, on LinkedIn, or it's paul.barlow at awgs.ai. That's Acorn West Growth Strategies. That's my consulting firm. So lots of people know me anyway, Mark, so they can
we got to cast that net and leave it a little bit wider. Hey, so
yeah, catch me on LinkedIn. Absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn is always the best way to get me. So.
Awesome, Paul. Well, hey, man, if you're ever out on the in the Seattle area, let me know. We can catch up for a beverage of your choice. It's great talking with you. Appreciate you coming on memoQ Talks, and look forward to crossing paths one day soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thanks for having me, Mark. And it's great just to hang out and chat with another industry vet, and we just kick around and do our best, right? So,
cheers, man.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.